Hi, this is Karen Rowland, founder of Hush Providence. Welcome to my new weekly Wellbeing podcast, Real People, Real Conversations, Real Life. We'll be talking about all things relating to the human experience. What makes up a life? What creates joy and happiness? What makes humans the same or different? How do we care for ourselves and each other? We'll even try to answer the 5 W's of well-being: who, what, when, where, and why, and how this all fits together. A little ambitious? Maybe, but join us as we connect with local topic experts, peers, mentors, and healers. Welcome to Hush Providence, a well-being podcast. I'm excited and honored to introduce Carrie Levine to today's episode. Welcome, Carrie.
Thank you.
Carrie is the founder of Whole Woman Health Clinic in Maine. She's an author of Whole Woman Health, a guide to creating wellness for any age and any stage. She has a Bachelor of Science in Public Relations and Women's Studies from Syracuse University. She's an RN and MSN from Case Western Reserve University, certified nurse midwife, and certified practitioner with the Institute for Functional Medicine. As you explained in your book, functional medicine is root cause medicine. It's the medicine of why as opposed to the medicine of what. Let's begin with what functional medicine is all about, your path to functional medicine, whether you found it or it found you.
That's such a lovely question. I would have to say I was looking for a practice model that was aligned with my values, beliefs, and understandings. And having practiced full scope midwifery at the local hospital, feeling like that was not always quite the right fit, and certainly wasn't great for my health in terms of sleep deprivation and being on call, there was a position that opened up at Women to Women in Yarmouth, Maine, which was a beacon clinic started by a collective of women. Christiane Northrup was one of them. And it had always sort of been a dream of mine to work there. And so I went and interviewed, and it was there that I was introduced to the model and felt like I had come home.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit about functional medicine and what it is exactly?
Yeah, functional medicine is a systems biology approach to chronic disease and illness. And what that means is that it looks at the interconnectedness of systems, where conventional medicine tends to isolate systems so that you have, the gynecologist for gynecologic issues, the rheumatologist for immune system issues, gastroenterologists for digestive issues, et cetera, et cetera. Systems biology looks at the underlying commonalities that might create a variety of different symptoms. So one imbalance can manifest as a variety of symptoms, and one symptom can be the manifestation of a handful of underlying imbalances. So it's really looking to get at the change in physiology that has created a disturbance in someone's health, instead of just trying to name it and decide which medication would be right for the situation.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And to frame a little bit, the CDC reports 6 in 10 adults in the US suffer from chronic disease. 4 of 10 have 2 or more. Can you share the lifestyle choices we can make today to maybe impact and positively change the outcomes?
Certainly, if people are not in the habit of eating a lot of vegetables, that can be a change that can have profound ripple effect. In addition to that, I would say not eating processed food. So eating food that could be hunted or gathered. And in general, those foods tend to be found in the periphery of the grocery store as opposed to the centered aisles, where you'll find more packaged foods and non-food items. So that's pretty big. I would say, in addition to that, finding healthy ways to manage stress. things other than drinking, smoking, binge watching TV, things that promote health, things like walking, being in nature, a meditation or prayer practice, those kinds of things can be revolutionary also for someone's health. And I would say the third biggest thing that people could do is to get moving. Our lives are so sedentary, and moving is so crucial to wellness.
Awesome. Can we talk a little bit about the concept of consumption and well-being?
I mean, it's interesting, right? The well-being industry is consumptive in and of itself. And even in my practice where I focus so much on lifestyle, I also use a lot of supplements, and that even in and of itself can have its own sense of consumption that can feel not great.
And now a shout out to our sponsor, the Good Seed Market, 138 Central Avenue, Seekonk, Massachusetts. Started in 1989 by three friends with a goal of creating a neighborhood market offering simple, natural, organic products for a healthy lifestyle. Now a member of the independent Natural Foods Retailer Association, our friends at the Good Seed are offering our listeners a 10% discount on their first purchase just by mentioning Hush Providence. The Good Seed Market, a place where ideas can grow. So you have a quote in your book, listen to the quiet voice within you, the voice that comes in stillness and silence, the voice of knowing down deep what you want and why you want it for yourself. Joy is its own medicine. Maybe you could share your personal story and the impact of trauma on your overall health and how it can manifest and how to manage in a positive way.
Oh, that was a lot of questions in one question. My personal story, I'm wondering if you're alluding to the passing of my daughter, Isabel. Yeah. So my daughter, Isabel, passed in a car accident in 2015. I'm sorry, in 2018. She was 15 years old at the time. And she was a healthy, vibrant, life-loving young woman with a super bright future ahead of her. And in an instant, she was no longer physically here on earth. And I have to say that I am grateful for having had the foundation and practices in place that I'd had prior to her passing, because I don't know how I would have gotten through without having a solid foundation. And I think I went to that place of bare bones minimum, almost like that place where I used to encourage new mothers to go, where you're just sort of like paring down to the essentials, food, sleep, and the minimum that needs to happen for the house to keep going and bills to get paid and to stay employed, those kinds of things. And so I really, really tried to, it wasn't even a try. There really wasn't a choice other than to just keep things very, very simple. And my connection with the natural world is probably the biggest salve that I have. And that sense of being but a speck amidst a universe that I'm reminded of when I walk amidst the trees is a good perspective to have. And being awe-inspired with the beauty that exists in the natural world was sort of a reminder that life goes on. You don't really necessarily feel like you want it to, but it does.
Thank you for sharing that story with us. I'm sure it's going to resonate with many people, and I'm sorry for the loss of your daughter, and I applaud your resilience and how you're helping others to deal with it. So thank you for that.
Thank you for asking.
So you talk about some of the social determinants of health, socioeconomic status, education, geography, physical environment, employment, and access. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Of course. I mean, depending on people's education and means and location, they have different access to different resources. And though that access is going to profoundly influence our health. I mean, I can't help but think about people in Gaza right now, right? And like their access to water, let alone all the other sort of foundations for living, safety, a roof, those kinds of things. But their access is so limited. And so, of course, their capacity for wellness is going to be limited by what they can access. And my understanding is it was actually quite limited even before October 7th in terms of economy, food, healthcare, et cetera. So, you know, a person who is living in a rural place and is undereducated will have different tools available to them than someone who is educated and living in an urban place that has lots of offerings. Although it's not always what we think it's going to be. And I think back to a woman I took care of who grew up on a farm in Maine where they raised all their animals and they had a huge vegetable garden and they canned their vegetables and they lived really, really close to the earth. But in her childhood, what was coveted were TV dinners, and her family couldn't afford TV dinners. And she sort of chuckled at the irony of how that is sort of reversed now, where it takes means to be able to buy fresh food and access. And it's the less economically sound, less educated populations, I'm speaking in generalities, obviously, that can access that kind of food. So it's interesting how things evolve over time.
You and I spoke a little bit about the blue zones. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the blue zones are places around the world where people live long and healthy lives. And a lot of what is identified as contributing to that is access to healthy food, living an active lifestyle, connection to community. And these things are profound in the ways in which they influence our health.
So the path to healing involves the practitioner and the patient relationship, allowing agency, active listening, shared decision-making, but that's true probably in all relationships.
Mm-hmm.
There's a new field of study called sociogenomics. Can you talk about that?
Well, it sort of dovetails from the blue zone conversation where value is being understood about our relationships and the effect that they have on our health, our sense of purpose and how that positively affects health, our place in community and how that positively affects health. And it affects our health in a genetic kind of way, right? Sociogenomics, you can hear in that word, the word genomics, and genomics has to do with the study of how genes get expressed, because our genes are not our destiny. They are spoken to by what we eat, what we think, the environment in which we live. And so those factors have a lot to do with which of our genes get expressed and which don't.
That's awesome. Okay, so this book, Whole Woman Health, is amazing. It's a comprehensive book. You've got everything in there. Everybody needs to buy it and read it and share with your book clubs. But there's so much, and this is a short podcast, and there's so much information. I thought we could do just kind of like a little speed dating, maybe the top 10 teases in the book, just sort of short answers, but just share some of the content that people are going to find, which is phenomenal. So the first is true and false anxiety. You referenced The Anatomy of Anxiety with Dr. Ellen Vora.
So she talks about true anxiety as sort of being related to existential questions and purpose, and false anxiety. And she's actually changed some of her language. it's interesting. I think I think she got some pushback about using the word false, but what she intended with that word to communicate is that there are ways in which we care for ourselves or don't care for ourselves that can manifest as anxiety. For example, low blood sugar. That's false anxiety. Some people, when they need to eat, they feel super duper anxious. And so that's not like it's real anxiety in that it's felt, but it's easily mitigated by balancing physiology.
Okay, next. Artificial sweeteners, yes or no?
No.
I may have a problem with that. Thoughts on statins, pros and cons?
Pros. Personal history of a cardiac event, first degree relative with a cardiac event, and personal risk factors. No, everybody else.
Renaming self-care to building resilience. Why?
Well, self-care has this super bougie kind of public relations problem, in my opinion, and I certainly react to it in that way. And I think that when you drill down a little bit past the language of self-care, what we're really talking about is building resilience, is living in a way such that we can bounce back from the adversities of life.
You are a proponent of the Mediterranean diet, but you also eat cake on your birthday and maybe a few other times during the year. Can you comment on the $72 billion weight loss industry and how they have shifted recently to injections and medications and things like that?
It's another chapter in a tragic story, in my opinion, and one that really preys on women in such a deep, deep, deep way. Weight loss is not a calorie in, calorie out equation. And usually there is underlying physiology that is affecting someone's ability as to whether or not they lose weight. And I am interested in holding people as they create a life that manifests as balance, weight included.
Why is gut health and inflammation a critical piece to healing?
Because the gut is Grand Central Station and the home of the immune system is in the gut. About 70 to 90% of the immune system is housed in the gut. So if you don't have gut health, you cannot have systemic health and wellness.
Wow. What is the vagus nerve? Why is it important? And why is everyone talking about it?
The vagus nerve is a vessel that runs along our spine, and it is a 2-lane highway connecting the brain and the gut. So the brain talks to the gut and the gut talks to the brain. So that whole concept of butterflies in my belly is real. And about 90% of serotonin and GABA, primary neurotransmitters or hormones that affect our mood, are actually produced in the gut. So again, depression and anxiety can have a gut related component if there is imbalance because a body won't optimally make the hormones for mood stability. And everyone is talking about it because it is involved in trauma and trauma responses, and trauma is getting a lot of press right now for all kinds of good reasons. And working with the vagus nerve can mitigate the physiologic effects of trauma.
Awesome. World Menopause Day is this week, October 18th. You've done a lot of work with stages of life, aging, menopause, and you state that menopause is for life. True or false?
True. There's no off switch. Sometimes I wish there was an off switch, but there's no off switch, right? And so primary sex hormone production happens in the ovaries, but there is also secondary sex hormone production that comes from our adrenals, little glands that sit on our kidneys that are primarily responsible for cortisol and other stress hormones. So even though ovaries decline in function, there will still be some hormone production from the adrenals.
Good to know. So functional medicine, the functional medicine matrix and 7 core nodes You describe this in detail in the book. You talk about functional labs, conventional labs, nutrition interventions, lifestyle modifications for each of the nodes. I encourage everyone to get the book and read about all of this. It's amazing information. You also have some great client descriptions and things that people you've been working with. So it's a great comprehensive guide. So I encourage people to get it. I have a couple more questions for you.
Mhm.
You're in the business of taking care of others. What are you doing to take care of yourself, and what tools do you find useful?
You cut out there for a moment. I'm sorry. Can you
Oh,
restate
sorry.
the question? That's okay.
You're in the business of taking care of others.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to take care of yourself, and what tools are you using?
Well, I see patients 3 days a week in the clinic by design. So it gives me 2 days to do things like this and to do things like exercise and take care of my body and have a writing practice and spend time outdoors. So I do all of those things as much as I can. I also try and eat as many vegetables as I can and eat food that comes from the earth. I spend a lot of time cooking and a lot of time meal planning. And yeah, I work hard to do the things that I encourage other people to do.
You are an author, but if you were writing your autobiography, what is this chapter in your life called?
Like most midlife women, I would have to call it transition.
Mm.
And, I'm 53 and I'm in that place where my nest is empty and I have a thriving clinical practice and have written a book, which was sort of my life dream. So there's a little bit of an assessment happening of what's next. What do I want life to look like? What from my last 50 do I want to take with me into hopefully not the next 50, the next 30-ish, hopefully. What works, what doesn't work, what do I want to try? How do I take care of my own aging body and mind and prepare to be a successfully aging person.
I'm a little further down the road and it's an adventure, so buckle up.
Yeah. I once was talking to a woman about menopause and she's like, I hate that word. I'm never using that word. I'm using the word turbulence. And I thought, also a very excellent word. Put your seatbelt on.
Yeah. Besides the book, how else can people connect with you?
I'm on the social media platforms. I'm on Facebook. I'm online. I'm on Instagram. I don't really do much on Twitter. I pop up every now and again on LinkedIn. And it's either carrielevine.com or Carrie Levine CNM. Those are in general the handles that will lead people to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie, for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it. You're just so inspirational in all that you're doing, and best of luck. And to all of our listeners, until next time, be well. Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much for listening to Hush Providence, a well-being podcast. This would not be possible without the incredible help from Jamie Farinella and Stephanie Whitehead on branding and logo concept, John Papa's endless generosity, David Davignon and Austin Lynch for their skilled technical expertise, and of course, our amazing guests and all of you, our listeners. Until next time, be well.